I still hear their laughter in my sleep sometimes. That sharp cutting sound that filled the briefing room the day I first walked in wearing my flight suit. My name is Elena Voss, and for most of my life, I believed the sky was the only place that never judged me. I grew up chasing contrails across the desert horizon, dreaming of the day I would sit in a cockpit and feel the world drop away beneath me. When I finally earned my wings, I thought the hardest part was over. I was wrong. The base was everything I had imagined: metal, fuel, the constant low hum of engines. I was assigned to an elite training squadron, the kind of unit that only took the best. Or so they said. On my first morning, Captain Rock looked me up and down like I was a tourist who had wandered into the wrong hangar. "Real pilots only," he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. The others laughed. Not the friendly kind of laughter, the kind that decides your place before you even open your mouth. I smiled anyway. I had learned a long time ago that silence can be stronger than words. I introduced myself, shook hands, tried to belong. For weeks I showed up early, stayed late, flew every training run they threw at me. I trusted them the way you trust people who share the same sky. I believed that once they saw me fly, the jokes would stop. I believed the uniform made us the same. But what I didn't know that day was how deep their laughter went. It wasn't just about skill. It was about who they thought I was allowed to be. They started leaving me out of the informal debriefs. They forgot to pass along schedule changes. One afternoon, they locked the briefing room door while I was still outside, and I could hear them talking about me like I was a problem that needed solving. My chest felt tight every time I walked those halls. I started questioning every decision, every radio call, every landing. The sky that once felt like freedom started to feel like a test. I was failing in front of people who had already decided the score. I kept my head down. I flew clean. I logged more hours than anyone in the squadron. Still the jokes came. "Careful. Falcon might need a co-pilot today. Maybe we should check if her wings are real." The name Falcon was just a nickname someone had given me after a particularly sharp turn in the training jet. They turned it into a punchline. I remember the night I sat alone in the empty hangar, staring at my reflection in the polished metal of a wing. My hands were shaking, not from fear of the air, from the quiet, crushing weight of being laughed at by people I had trusted with my life in the sky. I whispered to myself that it would pass, that excellence would silence them. I still believed the truth would eventually rise higher than their voices. I had no idea how high that truth already was. Mid. The breaking point came on a joint exercise with the upper command. We were flying formation runs over the coast, practicing high-speed intercepts. I was assigned the lead slot for the final run, something I had earned through clean scores and 0 errors. Captain Rourke pulled me aside just before we stepped onto the tarmac. His voice was low, almost kind. "Maybe sit this one out, Voss. Real pressure today. Don't want you holding the team back." I looked him in the eye and said I was ready. He shrugged like he had already won. The rest of the squadron watched. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked amused. We launched. The sky was clear and cold. I called the turns, kept the formation tight, adjusted for the wind the way I always did. Everything was textbook until the final approach. That's when I heard Rock on the private channel, the one that was supposed to be for emergencies only. "Watch the new girl choke," he said, laughing. Someone else answered, "Falcon's about to lose her feathers." Something inside me went quiet. Not empty, quiet the way the air goes still before a storm. I finished the run perfectly. When we landed, the debrief was pure theater. They found tiny things to criticize, angles that were within tolerance, radio calls that had been clear. I sat there taking notes while my face stayed calm, and my heart felt like it was being slowly crushed under the weight of their voices. That night, I walked the length of the runway alone. The runway lights stretched out like a path I no longer recognized. I thought about quitting. I thought about transferring. I thought about every person who had ever told me the sky wasn't meant for someone like me. The betrayal wasn't just the laughter. It was the trust I had given them. The belief that we were a team. That shared risk meant shared respect. They had taken that trust and used it as entertainment. I cried once, quietly, with my back against a fuel truck so no one would see. Then I wiped my face and made a decision. I would not leave. I would not beg. I would simply keep flying until the truth became impossible to ignore. I stopped trying to make them like me. I stopped explaining. I flew every mission like it was the only one that mattered. My scores climbed. My confidence returned, harder and quieter than before. The pain was still there, but it no longer owned me. It became fuel. I started noticing small changes. A few of the younger pilots stopped joining the jokes. One of them even nodded at me in the hallway. But Rourke and his circle doubled down. They filed a formal complaint, claiming I was disruptive to unit cohesion. The words on the paper felt like another slap. I was summoned to a command review. I walked into that room expecting more of the same. More laughter, more dismissal. I had no idea the room already contained the one person who knew exactly who I was. The general entered without ceremony. Tall, silver-haired. The kind of presence that makes an entire room straighten without being told. He looked at the complaint on the table, then at me, then at Captain Rourke. The silence stretched until it felt like the walls were holding their breath. "Captain," the general said, voice calm and final, "do you know the code name Falcon 1? Rourke smirked. "That's what we call her, sir." Kind of a joke. The general's eyes never left mine. The Falcon 1 is not a joke. Falcon 1 is the pilot who extracted a high-value asset under fire 3 years ago, when every other option had failed. Falcon 1 is the reason an entire squadron came home when the odds said none of them would. Falcon 1 has more classified flight hours than most of the people in this room will ever see. He turned the folder so everyone could see the blacked-out pages and the single clear line at the top. Voss, Elena, call sign, Falcon 1. The laughter died so completely, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the building. Rourke's face went pale. The others looked at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at me. I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I simply stood there, while the truth I had carried in silence finally filled the room. The general closed the folder. "This complaint is dismissed. Captain Rourke, you will be reassigned effective immediately. The rest of you will remember that the person you chose to mock may be the same person who one day has to bring you home." No one laughed after that. Not in the hallways. Not in the briefings. Not even in private. The respect that followed wasn't the loud kind. It was the quiet kind that settles when people realize they almost destroyed something they never understood. I still fly. The sky still feels like home. But now when I look at my reflection in the polished metal of a wing, I see someone who survived the laughter and kept her wings steady. The betrayal taught me that trust is sacred, and that some people will try to break what they cannot measure. It also taught me that the quietest strength is often the one that endures the longest. If you have ever been laughed at for daring to take up space in a room that didn't want you, remember this. The people who mock your place are rarely the ones who decide your worth. Fly your course. Keep your silence until the moment the truth is ready to speak. And when it does, let it land with the force of everything you refuse to surrender. The sky does not care who doubted you. It only cares that you kept climbing.